Hello, everyone. May you please stand for a flag salute. Ms. Fennick, the roll call, please.
Mrs. Bays,
Present.
Mrs. Epstein,
Here.
Dr. Block,
Present.
Ms. Brooks,
Here.
Ms. Gilliard,
Here.
Mrs. Melconian,
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Oh, no, you have
Okay.
to press your microphone.
I heard, oh, right.
Just for the record, Mr. Smith is on teleconference with us. He's not present at the meeting, but he's here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiations and get advice from counsel.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Block, second. All in favor to go into executive? Okay, we're in executive session. Yes, okay. Mr. Smith, yes. May I have a motion to
Motion to
reconvene?
reconvene?
We have a motion to reconvene. Ms. Epstein seconds. All in favor? 7-0. Ms. Fennick, the roll call again, please. Present.
Here.
Dr. Block,
Present.
Ms. Brooks,
Here.
Ms. Gilliard,
Here.
Mrs. Melconian,
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Adam?
I'm here.
Okay. Here. And Mr. Miller. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just for the record, Mr. Smith is here via teleconference. Okay, before we go on to the opening statement of the president, we have some special guests tonight. Board, I think we might want to move into the audience.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mr. Spezio, and I'm the choir director here at Boe Meeting High School, and this is our mixed choir, 10th and 12th graders. I would like to ask each of you to please stand and remove your hats for the singing of our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, before we sing our next selection, which will be our last selection, it's a special project, and it needs some special introduction. Back in September or October, all the members of the music department, Mr. Pinelli, Mr. Helpner, Mr. Pringle, and myself, we were talking about songs that the band could play as at football games. And we in the office we said, wouldn't it be nice if we had an alma mater? And I said, I wonder if we do have one, but there was no records anywhere. There was nothing in our files of any musical composition of an alma mater. So I contacted our librarian, McCall Cohen, and I said, can you check the archives at the library and see if there's anything? And I thought it would be like a long time before I heard back from her. If 15 minutes is a long time, that was a long time. So 15 minutes goes by, she calls me back, she said, you're not going to believe this. I started with the earliest yearbook we have on file, which was 1916 and 1917. In 1916, there were, I believe, 8 members of the senior class. And in 1917, I think there were 13 members of the senior class. And if you remember, if you think back, now we're talking World War I. So we find in the I'm gonna talk about the song that we have here called "We Sing Thy Praise," and that's the title I gave it. It was composed approximately 1910-1914. It was Martha T. Newell, 1885 to 1953. She's a Washington High School teacher between 1910 and 1914. It was composed by Marion Osborne. She was 1887 to 1967. And she had no affiliation with Port Washington other than the fact, well, I'll tell you in a minute when I get to know. And then what I did was I took what I found and made me right here. So when we look at the 1916 yearbook, we found this, a poem, the school song. "Oh, our high school, we sing to you. We will always be loyal and true. For thy honor we will stand. For the loyal's fair demand, and will rally round thy flag of blue. Ever forward may we bear thy name, ever upward we'll raise thy fame. May our purpose prove true, while we're working for you, Fort Washington, we sing thy praise." And that's where I get the title from, that last line. Well, when we look at the 1917 yearbook, lo and behold, we find a handwritten melody. And it truly was just a melody with a little counterpart happening underneath it. And there's two names. One here at the top, which you can't see, I'm sorry, it's a little small, and one here on both sides. Typically in music, on the left-hand side is the lyricist, and on the right-hand side is the composer. Well, I'm going under that same assumption. I find here it's M.T. Newell and Marion Osborne. I start doing some research, trying to do some Google searches, seeing what I can find. Really not coming up with much, and all of a sudden I get a nugget on Marion Osborne, and then, well, the floodgates open. Martha T. Newell, Martha Taylor Newell, was a Fort Washington High School teacher here between 1910 and 1914. She was the head of the Latin department. I actually uncovered, and I'm sorry, in my research, I contacted Lane Bennett, and I also contacted Denise Antonito in the superintendent's office to see how far back our records went. And unfortunately, the records only went back to the 1950s, and I needed to go back all the way to 1910. But I did find some observations from then administrators. Principal Palmer J. Jones. And I'm just going to read this first one. And I need my glasses, excuse me. It's easier if I read it here. Ms. Newell began teaching with us 2 years ago at a rate of $700 a year. We have appointed her head of the Latin department of our school with an annual salary of $850 a year. This we speak our, I'm sorry, this is cut off. I apologize. I have to read that again. Miss Newell is a young lady of unquestionable character, diligentness, and perseverance. I've always found her cheerful in any work, and she puts, puts accent in their relations, puts excellent results. If all my co-workers would show the same pleasing interest in their relations into the school life in the schoolroom would be just what it should be. We entertain but one fear regarding her, and that is that she will someday leave us. I am pleased to command her without reserve, and congratulate myself in having her assistance. So she was very highly thought of here, but unfortunately she only stayed until 1914. Where she went to Columbia University to teachers college. So I have, so all of you administrators, your stuff's going to live on. Somebody in 105 years is going to look at you right now. All right, and then there's the vice principal, Helen King, and I won't read this at this time. But during this time, Paul D. Schreiber was a faculty member at the high school before becoming principal later and then superintendent. Well, I traced her back to Mount Holyoke College, where her friend, Marianne Osborne, was the president of the senior class. And Miss Osborne, so here in their Mount Holyoke University was, Mount Holyoke College was kind enough to send me their entire alumni file. But, so Martha T. Newell, they wrote about her, little lively dancing king, here a hop, there a spring, anyone will surely do well, who can keep up, which is do well. But Marion Osborne, a rig-a-jig-jig, and away they go. Marion's fingers are not very slow. Hither and thither, and they cleverly race, up in the treble and down in the bass. No one would think our president's name stands for the name of vaudeville fame. It was a theater in Ohio, which was the Marion Vaudeville Theater. So, as I noticed, this evidence confirms that Marion Osborne was indeed the composer of the music, and Miss Newell was the lyricist. Again, from the left side, from the right side. And they graduated in 1909, and while she was teaching here, they were also at Columbia University, so we believe that this song may have been written sometime during her time here in 1910 1914, while they were all together. So there's Marion Osborne. In college, she's also right there. She is on the senior basketball team. And then, go back. And she was also known as the Belle of Mount Holyoke. There's actually a whole article I found that's called Worshipping Marion. She actually went back to Youngstown, Ohio, to her high school where she graduated, Reagan High School, and she was a teacher there until she left teaching and got married. I did find their obituaries as well. 1885 to 1953. Martha Newell, the connection to Fort Washington, unfortunately didn't marry and had no children. However, we can understand that there is a legacy of why she would want to write a school song. There is a great deal of patriotism in her family. On her father's side, Henry Albert Newell, grandfather and elite Minutemen in the Civil War. On her father's side, Samuel Newell, fourth great-grandfather, captain in the Revolutionary War. On her mother's side, George Washington Taylor, grandfather, was a captain in the Civil War. And Daniel Taylor, fourth great-grandfather, served alongside George Washington in the Revolutionary War. So while she was here, she brings that patriotism to Fort Washington and creates a school song. Marion Osborne marries Captain Eugene Bennett, who served during World War I. Became a lawyer, a judge. They had 4 boys who also served in the military. He unfortunately died in a car accident, and she died 7 years later. She died in 1967. She was, like I said, a phys ed teacher until but she stayed active doing civic duties and playing piano and organ in her church. Well, I took that song and created what you're going to hear now. Hopefully in 105 years, somebody will look back and try to find me. I try to find all of these wonderful students. So this song, We Sing Thy Praise, is adapted from what we found in the 1916 and 1917 yearbook. Hopefully bringing it back to life. Hopefully bringing back patriotism to our school, school spirit to our school, and a sense of pride in everything we do. So I bring to you now our choir singing the newly arranged school song, We Sing Thy Praise. It's not the same key. Close enough.
We
front of all of your seats. I would ask that you would consider to take up at a future meeting a formal resolution to adopt this as the official.
Will be our first community comment for tonight. Thank you. Horace, you did an amazing job, Mr. Spezio. Thank you. That was great. Thank you.
I do need to.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, we're going to get started. That was a wonderful performance, and thank you for that. I felt like I was in class. That was very energizing. Thank you. I got to learn a lot. So may I please have somebody make a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Ms. Epstein, motion to adopt. May I have a second? Anybody want to second it? Thank you, Ms. Melkonian. May I have a vote, please? 7-0, Mr. Smith. 6.5-0, Mr. Smith. He's on. Is he saying yes? Okay. So let me just move on with an opening from me. I just want to let everybody know that as part of our board, and as we've been doing continuously, trying to evaluate how we as a board our work in an effort to be more efficient and effective, we've made a couple more changes tonight in our the way that we'll be running the meeting. So I'm going to be yielding any sort of statement that I may have to the best of my ability so that we can get to business later. I appreciate that we've been having these meetings and staying here for a very long time, but I'm trying for us to try to be a little bit more effective. So in light of that, the first set of community comments will be limited to a total of 30 minutes, with each speaker still allowed 3 minutes. This will provide us the opportunity to hear from the community and still approach the business of the meeting while we're all hopefully very awake still. The second set of community comments, which come at the end of the meeting, will not have a time limit other than the 3-minute rule that we have been putting in place. We do have a discussion item tonight. We weren't going to be having a discussion item, but we do. And the presentation or the discussion will be, if there is a presentation, we don't really have a presentation, we'll give an opportunity for about 20 minutes for that presentation. The board will have another 20 minutes to ask their questions, have their discussion. If the board at the end of the 20 minutes feels that we need more time, we will take another 10 minutes to have that discussion, and then we will either move for a vote, a directive, or a stay of the discussion to another meeting. The committee reports will be limited to only action items or recommendations of the committee. We know that board members have been watching the meetings or attending the meetings, so we want to just eliminate a lot of the discussion from the committee reports and just really bring the committee recommendations or actions. So with that being said, we do have some certificates. We'll move on to our certificates. We are very honored to have some Regeneron Scholar semifinalists here this evening. Ms. Melkonian, would you please do us the honor?
Good evening. The following students receiving certificates were selected as Regeneron Scholar semifinalists: Jacqueline Atchley, Abraham Franchetti, and Lexi Veselinov. The competition is sponsored by the Society for Science and the Public, which founded the competition in 1942. It formerly was sponsored by Intel, and before that, Westinghouse Corp. They are among 300 students named Regeneron STS Scholars and hope to be among 40 finalists named later this month. The scholars were selected based on their exceptional research skills, commitment to academics, innovative thinking, and promise as scientists. These students were selected from 1,800 U.S. and international entries, and they each will receive a $2,000 award with an additional $2,000 going to the high school to support STEM education. We would also like to congratulate teachers Tina Gallagher and George Mulbauer. No, you do it.
All right, I'm going to ask, sorry. Good afternoon, yeah. Our semifinalists, please come up so we can take a picture real quick.
We are missing one semifinalist, but she emailed us in advance that they had a prior commitment, so we appreciate, we congratulate her anyway. Lexi. Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to make another change before we get to the report of the superintendent. We have an award of tenure this evening. So board item number 11.4 on our agenda. I'm going to skip to it because we are recognizing two teachers this evening, a teacher and a teacher assistant. So effective March 2nd, teacher Jessica Shaver, so I'm sorry, and a teacher assistant Susan McPartland are receiving tenure. So if you are here this evening, congratulations. We will have a formal celebration. There will be a formal celebration and a tenure ceremony in May, but we wanted to congratulate you this evening. So we need to do a vote, right? So may I please have a vote on 11.4? No, is that correct? Yes? All in favor? Mr. Smith? Yes, okay, Mr. Smith, say yes, 7-0. Oh, I'm sorry, who made the motion? Is that the question?
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Epstein made the motion, someone needs to second it. Ms. Gilliar seconded it. Okay, we are all in favor, 7-0. Sorry, everyone, thank you. Okay, now we are moving on to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you, President Bays. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to make this relatively quick because I know we have lots of things to discuss this evening. I just want to give a quick update regarding from our last board meeting. I know the board asked me to have some recommendations regarding live streaming. Just to give a quick update, I brought together 5 administrators, 5 teachers. We met early last week. We're meeting again later this week, and we will have a recommendation or recommendations portal for the board at our next February 1st board meeting, and I look forward to presenting that to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a reopening report, Dr. Shields or Dr. Allen? Thank you.
Yes, good evening. The District Protocol Committee continues to meet weekly. We've been discussing New York State Department of Health guidance and how to implement it. New documents that have been published on our website for the public to use as a resource, and also how principals notify parents about COVID-positive cases, and the distribution of at-home tests that we've been receiving. And finally, the impact of mask wearing and how that would impact our school if we chose not to. We'll be meeting again next week.
Thank you, Dr. Shields. Okay, we are moving on to community comments. We will have our first set of community comments. Remember, this is timed to a maximum of 30 minutes.
Okay, our first person is Linda Chandrianis.
Hondroyanis. Got you, sister. Linda, I won't tell them what the name means. Do you?
Linda C. It's okay. So I don't need to say who I am then. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. On January 13th, the New York State Department of Health issued an update on the school masking requirements. It was not a new mandate, but it was an amendment that was slipped in, which is not normal practice, to implement. There was no implementation of mask breaks during the school days indoors. I understand that this as a district, we may not be required to follow this, and I'm not here to talk to you about the legality of the rule. I'm here to talk to you about the profound negative impact it has on our kids. Some may say it's no big deal, it's a piece of cloth. Kids are adaptable. But I ask you, who in this room wears a mask 7 to 8 hours a day with no breaks? We know that the administrators and members of the board are not masked all day, every day. There are numerous BOE committee meetings held on Zoom where Dr. Hines, Dr. Shields, and Dr. Allen appear on screen with no mask. They are likely in an office alone and permitted to do so, of course, and it's much easier to communicate without a mask. We all know that there are advantages, many advantages, to not being masked. This is how we all grew up, with no masks. We were socialized and we learned. I highly doubt most in this room are masked 6, 7, or 8 hours. We have family and friends who work in who are medical professionals, people that have chosen that profession where their mask is part of their job. Even they do not wear their mask continuously. They have mask breaks all day long as needed. Our children do get breaks for lunch and recess, but in the dead of winter, right now, there is no outdoor recess that is commonplace. There are students in a district who wear masks for much longer than the 6 hours per day. Kids who participate in extracurricular activities. A child can arrive at school at 7:05 for band practice, where they are double masked. Then they go straight to the classroom. Later at lunch, the mask can be pulled down where they can have a break to be given to eat. That may take them, 5 minutes? Let's give them a bit more time and say it's 10. Then the mask is back on. If that same child stays for an after-school club, it's until 5:30 p.m. He or she is fully masked for a 10.5-hour day with only a 10-minute break to eat. How is this appropriate? How is that childhood?
30 seconds.
Our children are at the lowest risk of COVID, but at the highest risk for missing developmental and academic milestones. Yet the most restrictive policies are pressed upon them. We need to see the suffering and understand the impact and act now for our kids. It is time to give them back their childhood. Thank you.
Susan Brissell.
Good evening. My name is Susan Brassel. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. There's obviously been much confusion over the new state Supreme Court ruling from yesterday, and regardless of the outcome of the appeal pending in that case, all know that the governor's mask mandate will be coming to an end in the near future. In fact, the governor herself has signaled that when the school-based mask mandate ends, she does not expect school boards to continue masking their students. At this point, our community needs certainty. We respectfully request a resolution by the board and public vote to make masks optional on a certain date. As you may be aware, other districts have already done this. Massapequa has resolved to no longer require their children to wear masks as of February 21st. In Plain Edge, they will no longer be required effective February 16th. It is time for Port Washington to act. It is time for a vote. If you all cannot agree on a resolution or a public vote tonight, the community would like, at the very least, a poll of the board on the issue. Thank you.
Amy Nelson.
Hi, I'm Amy Nelson. I'm the mom of three awesome girls in the district. Two are in high school. One is in middle school. This year marked my first attendance at a board meeting. My sister was actually on the board for a number of years, and I actually never came to a board meeting. I guess I trusted her. But I'm here now, and one of the things that I continue to hear, and I understand that we, or you as a board, are looking to follow mandates from the state, right? And we feel as though we're bound by those mandates. But then I also hear from our community, from people who have a different opinion around masks, and there's a lot of discussion about the efficacy of masks and whether they work or whether they don't work. There's a fairly large group of us, but probably not larger than the group of people who would like their children or our children to be mandated to wear masks. All we're asking for is the choice. We believe that our children are safe. We understand that out of 75 million children in the United States, only 775 of them have died with COVID. That is not necessarily from COVID. We understand that the risk is very small to them. We also understand, at least I do from my youngest daughter, who is now in 7th grade, has said to me, Mom, I really have a hard time, and she does great in school. It's not impacting her grades, but she says, I have a really hard time understanding if my teacher is happy with my class participation. I have a really hard time understanding my teacher's emotions. And I guess in my words, that would mean she's not really able to connect with her teachers. And in terms of a children's social and emotional development, that connection with their teachers has a big impact on who they become. The academics are one part of it, but
30
the connection
seconds.
with their teachers, I think the kids are really missing out on. And then one final thing that I would just like to, continue to say is that we're not asking that no kids wear masks to school. All we're asking for is the choice for our children to not wear them. Thank you.
Amy Vansheen.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you very much. Hello and good evening. This too is my first board meeting, and I am here to go on record, although I've written it many times, to say that again, I do not support mandatory masks, and to address my dissatisfaction that this district did not stand with the Supreme Court ruling. I felt it was unjust that other districts on Long Island allowed their students and parents to choose whether to wear masks today, which was in accordance with the law. Why should this district be any different? Children and their families should have the freedom of choice, and that was a decision that the court supported. And since when do you uphold a possible future law instead of the one that was in effect, which is exactly what you did today? I'm further here to implore you, this district, to consider counseling for its staff. If you haven't already, please consider the inclusion of trauma training and psychological safety courses. You have some staff walking around in total fear, living from their trauma, which is spilling onto our children, treating them like disease vectors. Children as a result, are now living in fear and have normalized separation and hiding behind a mask, creating social barriers and even more struggles than any normal child should endure. My kids are coming home feeling unwell and unhappy, and I am left considering alternatives for their education. I ask that you stand with the children. Whether it be in freedom of choice or in treating them like the loving beings they are. Thank you for your time.
Michelle H.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Shao, the mother of a 7-year-old girl at Daly. I had the pleasure of meeting several of you recently when I ran for police commissioner, and I appreciate your commitment to our children and the staff. I'm speaking for the very first time in a meeting in support of lifting the mask requirement for our schools now, given the ruling yesterday, or at the least, once the governor's mandate expires. Refer to her comments on January 21st. Once the state mask mandate lapses, no school district will be expected to follow these protocols. I wholeheartedly support a parent's right to choose what is right for their child. I have chosen to vaccinate my child, and I will choose to not force her to wear a mask if not legally required. If a parent feels that their child should continue to wear a mask in school, then they should have that right. But if a parent feels that their child's social, physical, mental, and intellectual health are being irrevocably impacted by wearing a mask for 7+ hours a day, then they should have a right to not wear it. I am speaking on behalf of all children negatively impacted by the constant mask wearing. This is especially true of children who have developmental delays or challenges. I know about this because my daughter receives speech therapy and is also in reading recovery. For her development, it is essential that she and her providers see each other's mouths and that they hear each other speak and articulate clearly without the filtering of 2 to 3 layers of fabric. I'd like to refer to a Wall Street Journal article by Dr. Marty Makary, professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and Dr. Cody Meisner, chief of pediatric infectious diseases at Tufts Children's Hospital. The psychological harm of widespread masking is an even greater worry than physical harm. Facial expressions are integral to human connection, particularly for children. Covering a child's face mutes nonverbal forms of communication and can result in robotic and emotionless interactions, anxiety, and depression. Seeing people speak is a building block of phonetic development. It is especially important for children with disabilities such as hearing and speech impairment. I want you to think of every single child in our district who has struggled since COVID began. So many are now seeing mental health professionals. They're in reading recovery at record numbers, and innumerable children's social development is stunted because they can't tell from their friends and teachers' masked faces if they are happy or if they're angry. Please, for the sake of our children and for the staff who are valiantly trying to educate and care for them, make masks a choice. Our children are in desperate need of relief. The masks are not harmless.
30
The masks
seconds.
are doing great harm, especially for the youngest, like my daughter, who has never attended elementary school without a mask. She is struggling mightily to learn, develop, be healthy physically and mentally, and to build social connections. I thank you for listening, and I thank you for your commitment to our children and our community.
Amy Snorderland.
Good evening. I'm here to break from routine and take a minute to recognize the work of Dr. Sherry Suzanne. While Sherry touts a very long career in our district, it's been only 6 years that I've known her. And in that time, she has taught so many lessons. I am not even her student and have been the beneficiary of many lessons. Far too many to mention in less than 3 minutes here tonight. As everyone knows, leaving an employment position in education before June 30th is almost unthinkable. But as Sherry abdicates her role on February 1st, she provides us one of her best lessons. In her example, to follow her own path, think outside the box, and be true to herself, her passion, her calling, She models a behavior we could all learn from. I stand before you tonight as a better version of myself than I was before I knew Sherry's example of leadership. She leads as a principal, as a colleague, as an artist, a mother, a friend. The adoration I have for Sherry is born from admiration of her leadership. Thank you.
Kathy Galanis.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Galanis. I have 2 kids in the district, middle and high school. What you are doing to our kids by keeping these mandates is unconstitutional. The mental and emotional damage you are causing is way worse than COVID. I'm asking for parental choice. You do not know my kids' health issues. You are not their doctors, and I am sure you will never take any responsibility for them. Therefore, you have absolutely no right in telling me what is good for them. I don't know when we lost touch with reality and we are allowing the government to tell us what is right health-wise for us. Actually, I do. It's called money, and some of us lose our integrity for it. But it needs to end. My kids should not have to wear a mask. If other parents feel they need to mask their kids, that is their choice, and I respect that. My family's choice also needs to be respected. We know, and it has been proven by the many emails we get daily, that people are getting COVID while they are masked and vaccinated. I also want to say that respect is earned, not given. What I am saying by this, I have volunteered for this district. I have gone door to door, made phone calls, sent out emails in support of this BOE and the budget. I have supported all of you, backed you up, and rallied for you and with you. That is how I show my respect for you. My family, unfortunately, has not been given the same in return. I will never vote yes for the budget again. I will now go door to door, make phone calls, and send emails opposing the budget. Please know this is not a threat. It is with extreme sadness that I say this. But my kids' health, both physically and mentally, is way more important than you, your mandates, and your budgets. My choices as a parent is more important. I will not allow you or anyone else to take that away from me or my kids. Thank you.
Erica I.
For the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's what we started with tonight. Once the governor's mask mandate ends, I'd like to know where the board and administration stand on removing masks from our children. What will it take to give parents a choice? Once the mandate ends, I expect the board and administration to follow suit and update their policy to reflect the change and allow for parental choice. Mask use among our children has been inconsistent since day one. And what do you think happens after school or on weekends? Usage becomes even more inconsistent or even non-existent. So the school mask policy that claims to reduce transmission is then ineffective when students take them off and interact with each other in any capacity in or out of school. I am well aware and informed of the risks and benefits of mask use. I expect choice because I know my children best and what they need to thrive and grow. Wearing a mask does not allow them to thrive and grow. Children are suffering academically, socially, emotionally under this mandate. It's time we put our children first and address them individually and what's best for each child. We must look at them individually and decide what's best for each one, just as a teacher would differentiate their lesson using various strategies to reach each child. Our town has become so divided on this topic of mandating masks versus giving parents and students a choice. I've said this before and I'll say it again. So many of us are proud to stand up and say we will not tolerate bullying in our town and that we accept and love everyone for who they are no matter what. But this only seems to apply when people agree with others' points of view, namely only mandating masks. If anyone publicly opposes the mask mandate for any reason, they are shamed, and they're told they're horrible people. Many parents are afraid to speak up against the mask mandate for this particular reason. Many parents I know would move out of Port Washington for this reason. All parents I know who do not live in Port Washington would never move here based on what they see and hear about our town. For such a beautiful looking town, it can be ugly on the inside. Our children see this and feel it.
30 seconds.
They feel the divisiveness, the segregation that happens amongst them. And many are afraid to speak up to adults and to their peers. Enough is enough. I respect everyone's right to choose what is best for them and their family with regards to masking. No one can claim to know how my children feel or what is best for them. I'm not the selfish one requiring others to do as I do. If the board and administration really care about our children as individuals
3
and
minutes.
creating an anti-bullying community, they would stand up and allow parents to choose what's best for them.
Aaron T.
Hello, community members. When you come up to the podium, please announce your name. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aaron Tripleman Miller, and I am a senior at Schreiber. I'm here today to talk about the recent events with mask mandates in New York State. According to judicial analysis of the court's decision, municipalities and localities, as well as school boards, can enact their own mask mandates. The board has a choice today to make schools safer and foster an environment of learning. Many have lost family members and loved ones or had to see them hospitalized because of COVID-19. Not enforcing mask-wearing rules harms people who are worried about family members and teachers who have loved ones that can die or be hospitalized due to COVID because of medical circumstances. Even if the mask mandate is reinstated because of the appeal, it does not mean a similar situation might not occur in the future. The board needs to establish its own mask mandate so there will not be another day of limbo on mask rules. Around 10 to 15%, possibly more or less, didn't wear their masks today because they didn't have to. And this is with 650,000 plus cases a day.
He was
Our
respectful
town
while you
was
spoke.
personally-
Can we please be respectful of the speaker?
Our town was personally affected right before break when there was a massive outbreak of COVID in our school. Imagine how many more would have been out if people didn't wear masks. We need to stop the spread, and it starts with masks. Masks work, and we are in a pandemic. The board must enact a mask-wearing policy if the board cares about in-person learning and safety of students. I want to go back to normal, but we must put in the effort to get there. A mask-wearing mandate will ensure the longevity and continuance of in-person learning while also alleviating concerns of teachers and students. We need to be active American citizens and patriots who defend and protect their fellow citizens, and that includes from diseases. I also want to edit, because I just found out a few minutes ago, that the mask mandate was reinstated with a stay from the judge. The board should still make its own mandate, as the state one is still under a legal battle. I hope to see the mask mandates reinforced again tomorrow because there has been a stay. Mask up for a better future and a safer learning environment. Thank you.
Marika Lines?
Good evening. I'm Marika Lyons. I know in the past I've come here with studies and data as for why I believe masks shouldn't be mandated. I continue to believe in that science and data. do not support forced masking of school children, but I understand why you might have been hesitant to make that determination before, as it was going against the grain. But I believe we're on the precipice of an end to the state mask mandate, as many others have mentioned, and that it opens the door for the board to be able to get rid of its own mask mandate without having to make its own determination. When Governor Hochul discussed the Massapequa decision to end the mask mandate on February 21st, she indicated the plummeting numbers of COVID. She indicated that if that trend continued, she would not extend the mandate, and that would be a determination from the governor and the Department of Health that it's no longer necessary. It's a golden opportunity for you to restore parental choice to our community. Ending the mask mandate will not deprive anyone of anything. Those parents who want to continue to mask their children will be able to do so, and they've also had ample time to vaccinate themselves and their children and get boosted if they wanted to. But ending the mandate will give back so much to parents that have determined that masking is not in the best interest of their children, but have been forced to do so for many months. It will be a step toward restoring normalcy for all children who have been struggling for months, and a step toward healing and restoring our beloved community. And it also would be no longer considered going against the grain. Dozens of school districts seized on the opportunity last night and restored parental choice once the Supreme Court decision was issued. We're at a different point in time than we were at the beginning of COVID. I have a lot of respect and sympathy for the people who are afraid of COVID or who had rough experiences when this started, and I was not opposed to mask mandates last year. But this is a different situation. Each family has tools at their disposal to protect themselves as they see fit, between vaccinations and boosters, better quality masks, natural immunity that now hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers have due to the Omicron variant. It's a different situation. And we have to understand that the people who are asking for mask choice are not asking you to deprive anyone of a right. But the people who are asking for forced masking are asking you to require someone else's child to wear a mask. The parents seeking a mandate are not asking you to protect their own right to mask their children, because no one is trying to take that away. They're asking you to grant them the right to forcibly mask someone else's child. And that's the distinction I see. Coming at this as an attorney, my concern with this was always the way it affects people's rights, the way we treat each other, and the fundamental underpinnings of our democracy and our
30
country.
seconds.
And I think that we have to understand what people are really asking for. We have to look realistically at what the situation is with COVID right now. It's not what it was 2 years ago. We have to make progress. We have to move forward, and we have to give people their rights back. Please, when you have the opportunity, end the mask mandate and restore parental choice. Thank you.
Thank you. That ends our first set of community comments. We are going to go on to our discussion item, and we do have a special guest this evening with us. It is our attorney, Mr. Howard Miller, who will be here this evening to discuss the mask ruling that took place, the court case that everyone is talking about, and to give us some feedback, guidance, and then we will have our own discussion. So, Mr. Miller, I turn it to you.
Thank you. So as referenced in the community comments, there was a decision yesterday by a judge in Nassau County basically invalidating the state mask mandate. The court, there's a lot of technical legalese in the decision, but basically said, hi, can you hear me now? Okay. So the court basically said that the executive branch of government, the Department of Health, did not have the authority to impose a mask mandate, that had to come from the legislature. There was a decision to the contrary a few months ago by a court in Albany, and also by a federal appeals court down here in Long Island, or in Brooklyn. The state filed an appeal of the Nassau County decision last night. And this morning, they went to court, and they asked the appellate division to issue what's called a stay of the Nassau County Supreme Court's decision. And a few hours ago, a single judge of the appellate division did issue that stay and did say that the decision of the Nassau County Supreme Court is not in effect pending a full briefing of the motion for a stay, meaning that Friday there's going to be additional argument on whether this stay should continue. In the meantime, by virtue of the stay that was issued by the appellate division, the mask mandate is back in effect. So no school district in New York State can give parents the choice of whether or not to send their children to school with a mask, at least as of now. That's pending further determination from the appellate division, and as also referenced earlier, whether the governor will allow the mandate to expire on its own terms. So that's really where we are now. The school district, neither Port Washington, nor Massapequa, or any of the other school districts, can violate that rule now. That's where we are.
So Howard, that rule, and there is another hearing on Friday, right?
That's
So can you
correct. There
explain
will
the
be-
process on Friday?
So it's a complicated process, but basically, most appeals are heard by 4 judges of the appellate division. We're governed by the appellate division that sits in Brooklyn. There's a procedure where you can go to one appellate division judge and ask them to issue what's called an interim stay until the other 3 judges can hear it. That's what happened today. A single judge heard argument. It was actually live streamed, although if some of you tuned in, the live stream certainly wasn't great. And then the judge, a few hours later, issued the ruling. It's not much of a ruling. It's a single piece of paper saying that there's a stay pending a determination on the full motion. So the full motion could be heard on Friday, or it could be that the court takes a little time to figure, to think about it, given the gravity of the stakes. But until that time, and we've heard this from the Commissioner of Education, school districts must comply with the state mandate.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Mr. Miller, any questions from board members for Mr. Miller? Ms. Brooks, do you have questions?
Well, I don't have questions about the process. I had actually prepared my questions in the eventuality that the stay was not granted. And so I guess these are questions for some future time. I can ask them now.
Okay, hold on, you don't have to ask them now, if they're
okay,
not
I
for a
was
future
just-
time. Does anybody else have any other questions with regards to what Mr. Miller just asked? So I am asking the board, based on what we're hearing from Mr. Miller this evening, we have a stay was granted until Friday at the least, right? And that the stay could potentially continue. We also know, as Mr. Smith wants to say something? I'm sorry, I'm going to stop. Mr. Smith, can you get him on speaker, please? No, hold on, you're going to go on the mic.
Go ahead, Adam.
Okay. Howard, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, Howard, my question was, in that explanation that you gave, is there any ambiguity whatsoever in the fact that we have to continue with masks at this moment?
There's no ambiguity at this moment.
Did you hear that, Adam?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is no ambiguity. Do you have any other questions, Adam?
No, that was it. I just wanted to confirm that this wasn't like an interpretation of Howard's, but this was some very clear, unassailable legal,
No,
just to clarify.
this is definitely not my interpretation. This is what the court said, and then it's been repeated by the commissioner, who has made it clear that all school districts have to comply with this.
So,
that's all.
Mr. Miller, what happens on Friday? Can you, again, on Friday, they hear the...
So on Friday, 4 judges will hear the oral argument on both sides about whether to continue the stay. They could decide right then and there, either they'll continue it or discontinue it, or they may say we want to deliberate on it. So unfortunately, we're left in a little bit of limbo for longer. But again, right now where we are, the mandate is in place.
So I have a question for the board. We do have another board meeting scheduled on February 1st, which happens to be next Tuesday. So in this particular situation, we have a stay granted until Friday. We could have a stay extended on Monday, hypothetically. We're all praying for a snow day on Monday, so snow day on Monday, but we would be back together again on Tuesday. is there a sense of the board on what happens if, are we prepared to have a discussion if the stay is not granted? Do we, as I think that Mr. Miller, I think I've understood that we as a board could also make a decision if the stay was not granted, correct?
So if the stay is overturned, so let's say the whole panel hears this and say, we're not going to issue a stay pending appeal. Right now that decision goes back into effect. That would mean it'd be up to every local school board to decide what to do, whether they're going to continue the mandate or not. The one monkey wrench I would throw into that is that the governor did have a press conference today and did allude to the possibility of getting a legislative fix. So, as I mentioned earlier, the legal ground by which the Nassau Supreme Court invalidated what the state did was that the legislature did not come up with a bill that was then signed by the governor. The governor referenced the possibility of then saying, okay, well now I'm going to have the legislature do that. Whether she does that, I don't know, or whether this was political theater, we don't know. But certainly if that became a law that was signed, then we're bound by the law.
Okay, so there's still plenty of unknowns, but welcome to COVID. So I'm asking questions of the board. Is there any feedback, any sense that you have? Because I have a recommendation, but I'm going to give it to you, Ms. Gilliar.
I'm happy to hear your recommendation too, but now that you've said out loud that our next board meeting is just a week away, which is usually not the case, the thing that, separate from the COVID issues, which obviously we've all spent a lot of sleepless nights pondering at this point, one of the things that troubles me about this entire situation is the extent to which it has pitted groups of community members against one another. And I happen to, I come from where I come from on my views on this, but I respect all the opposing views, and I'm hopeful that the end of this is coming, and maybe we differ on where the end of this is, but it will come, and we want to still feel like a unified community at that point. And I'm concerned that days like this day, where we had this massive amount of uncertainty, pitted the most extreme viewpoints really against one another. And I hear a lot of conflict, especially having come out of the high school today, among students, masked, unmasked, bullying masked, bullying unmasked. That worries me. And so I guess I'm happy to have a more extensive conversation about mask mandates in general and where we stand and where we think we want to go. But as a preliminary matter, I actually think it's unlikely that the court is going to decide on Friday. Probably this stay will extend, it will be moot. But maybe tonight we want to decide that at the very least, we are going to have the rules stay in Port Washington as they are until next Tuesday's board meeting, no matter what happens in between, so that we can figure things out in an orderly way and give our administrators time to plan.
Okay, hold on a second, everybody, please. We're having this discussion. So, as we heard from our attorneys, we actually have no choice but to continue the mandate because it has been put into effect. It's still going. So, whether we want to or not, we are continuing the mandate. We have no choice on that. The question I think that we as a board can start discussing, and I would like for us to start discussing, is what happens when the mandate is no longer in place. Port Washington we may find out that so there is a lot of dates going out there. We know that the mandate expires, the executive order expires per mandate on February 15th. There's a date of February 21st. I have no idea where that came from, but let's say it's February 21st. What do we, Port Washington, want to do on February 21st? I do believe that the governor, my personal belief, is that the governor will give us some revisions. That I believe that there will be revisions in how we handle, for instance, we have new quarantine rules, right? So what happens when you come back from the 5-day mandated quarantine, we can now come back 5 days but must wear masks, is what what all of the guidance is saying. Will that stay in effect? How would we address that? There's probably going to be discussions or questions about contact tracing. How are we going to contact trace? If everybody is mask optional, what does that mean? Are you okay do we have to collect vaccination information so that we could probably, there's a lot of maybes, and I'm coming up with all these different maybes, and I think my suggestion is that we ask our administration to start working, and I know our protocol committee meets once a week. Unfortunately, we might want to meet a little bit more to maybe start thinking about all of the answers to these potential questions that I know not only do we as board members have, community members have, and our staff has, right? So I think that these are all important things that we need to work out so that we as a board have an exit ramp ready for when this mandate does expire. So that's what I'm proposing we all agree upon this evening. We don't have to have the date in my mind, and I don't believe we have the answers, because I do believe there's a lot of details that have to be worked out. But I'd like for us to all, and I think we all agree on that. I mean, I think based on seeing shaking heads, and I know how we all want this to end, right? And so that's my proposal. I'm putting it out to the rest of you. Dr. Block, I see your hand. And I know Mr. Smith, but I see Dr. Block.
So I'll support that proposal. So I want to thank everybody for speaking. I think, there's a couple of things that in speaking to other board members and speaking to members of the community, I think many of us agree on. The first is that we've been open as a school district when other school districts have not, and I think we're all happy about that, right? So a bunch of North Jersey districts closed the first 2 weeks in January. We stayed open. I think one thing that I certainly believe, and I think many of our board members agree with, is we do not want to have masks forever, right? And we're coming closer to that time when we get rid of it. I think also, I believe that we have to follow the law. The law says that there are masks, and so as a board member, I'm not going to say, well, the law says one thing, but I'm going to say something else. And so I support what Emily said, which is we have to create an off-ramp because the time is coming, right? There's a bunch of dates that have been talked about in February. I don't know if those will be the dates. Personally, I think early January was too soon. Omicron was going crazy. We have seen a really positive trend in the last 2 weeks, last week and a half, 2 weeks. And if that continues, this can be over relatively quickly. So I think the last thing I want to say is that what happened last night was a bit of chaos, and I don't think anybody wants that, with like a judge coming out with a ruling at like 8 o'clock at night and us not knowing at 8 a.m. what we should tell our kids. So I want this to be an orderly, basically, transition so that people feel comfortable with the transition. And most importantly, I was on the district committee, what are we calling it now? Protocols committee. Protocols. And there was a clear discussion from the staff about wanting that sort of orderly transition so that the staff could feel comfortable. They were pretty unified in that. So I think what we're looking for is for the administration to come up with a couple of guidelines, because there are going to be a bunch of questions here, which is, if we're not masked, like how does quarantine change based on the CDC recommendations? How does spacing change? And I don't know the answers to any of these questions, so we're going to ask the administrators to come up with a couple of the answers to those questions.
Thank you, Dr. Block. Mr. Smith would like to speak. Ms. Melkonian, please.
Go ahead, Adam.
Actually, most of what I was going to say was said by Dr. Block, so I'll make this fairly short. My biggest concern is that, like Dr. Block said, this is probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen in a chaotic way without a lot of notice. So my big ask tonight is that we stop wasting all of our meeting time focusing on this issue and try to really get the board decision as much as possible out of the way tonight. We know this is going to get dropped on us, and it's probably going to be sometime in the next couple of weeks to a month. So we really need to make sure, not that the administrators are maybe starting to think about it, as you said, Emily, but that they actually are thinking about it and plan for it really completely, so that the community, the staff, the students, the parents are not, left wondering what happens when we get, a Thursday night announcement from the governor's office that they're not extending the mandate. So I think we really do need to focus on this and really, and frankly, our next meeting on the 2nd, there's a big budget topic. And our meeting after that, there's a big budget topic. And we're running up on the budget process in April. So we really, we're just getting started and it's 9 p.m. already. So we can't devote any more BOE meetings to this topic and conduct the business of the school district. So I just don't see how we can continue punting this meeting after meeting after meeting. That's all I have to say.
Ms. Brooks is next, but Mr. Smith, just to be clear, there was no punting. We were discussing actually having the committees work on the plan so that when the mandate ends, that was the proposal I put out. When the mandate ends, we have a plan in place. Ms. Brooks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I usually agree with Mr. Smith on a lot, but the characterization of punting, I do take issue with it. I too have listened to everybody's punting was the wrong word. I hear him down there. He's saying punting was the wrong word. Okay. I too listen to everybody's comments. For every person who feels that their child is in danger because of wearing a mask, there's another person who feels that their child is in danger because somebody isn't wearing a mask. And as a school board, as a district, I don't know that we'll ever make everybody happy. I think that we're charged with the health and well-being. Well, I know we're charged with the health and well-being of every student in this district. And for some people, that's mental health. For some people, it's physical health. And it's a balancing act where we will never please everybody. I'm convinced of it. So that having been said, I am fully in support of I think our administrators are already trying to gear up for what may be. I don't know that anybody predicted that Omicron would happen the way it has happened. I guess if we followed what happened in South Africa, we would be aware. But I think we all thought this was coming to an end at some point. And then we got hit with very high numbers. Happened a lot over break. It continued to manifest itself through extracurricular activities and things that were happening outside of the school district. And I think that we have to be mindful that anything could happen. We do not know what February is going to bring. And so I'm urging the community to understand that we are not soothsayers. And we can only try to deal with what we know. And what we know is that the guidance is always changing. I've been on this board since the pandemic began, and it was chaos over the summer before we opened school in September of 2020. Our administrators were working like animals. We board members were stepping in to work like animals. The Department of Health could change the guidelines again. They may very well say, yeah, we understand, take the mask off, but now you'll have to be 6 feet apart again. We have I'm saying we have no idea what's going to happen. So I would just caution the public to please understand that if that changes for us, we have to be able to function within those confines. And I don't want to see our administrators setting up classrooms differently if we don't have to. I think we just need to be ready, but to understand that things could change and we don't know what those changes might be.
Ms. Epstein.
Logistically, there may be changes associated with no masks, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Brooks. I thought you were done. Ms. Epstein.
I'm going to be very brief. I really thought Dr. Block eloquently enumerated the objectives here, and I'm in full support of what he said. I think it's time for us to not sit back and wait for the government to give us the exit ramp strategies. We need to be proactive and take the bull by the horns and really stop this so that when the time does come and we have to make that last minute decision, we are lessening that ambiguity and that chaos, and we can really smoothly implement it for the social emotional health of our students and staff. So I agree. Thank you.
Ms. Melkonian, do you have anything to add?
Once again, everything's been said.
Rachel, I'm sorry.
So I'm also in agreement with the points that Dr. Block made, and I think to me, the important part about this conversation is that we are all in agreement that we need to proceed in a way where we are prepared for whatever happens, where we're prepared for what gets thrown at us. But as Mrs. Brooks alluded to, we mean prepared as best we can be, because anything might change. It doesn't actually, I'm heartened by this conversation because I think to whatever extent possible, we're trying to remove this political debate of masks versus no masks from the conversation and saying, how do we proceed in the best, most orderly way for all of Port Washington? It means at some future date, maybe we have a debate about what moment we think that is, depending on what happens with the mandate, but we're prepared. We're prepared with the eventualities, and I think that's the piece that is maybe not obvious from the outside from people who are not running the district, that when this decision came down, and then, you know, first of all, came down late yesterday, it's not a simple question. Dr. Hines wasn't sitting in his home thinking, do I take them off? Do I not take them off? There are a lot of consequences. And the terrible part about this kind of unplanned thing is that there's no time to think through those consequences. So I appreciate the request to plan ahead and actually think through them. And one of them, just to give everybody a window, you know, for example, I was thinking last night, we still have all the Department of Health guidance, we still have all the CDC guidance, whether there's a state mandate or not. So last night I was thinking to myself, wait a second, we have, we know, very congested schools at Weber and Schreiber. If we take the masks off everybody, can we get all of those kids into Weber and Schreiber and still be in compliance with the rest of the CDC and Department of Health rules? And if I had to choose, I want every kid in the building for sure. My point here is just, we need the time to think through this stuff. Hopefully, the point at which we get to, the state lifts the mask mandates, the CDC guidance changes, the Department of Health guidance changes, we're all aligned on this is our beautiful moment when we're coming out of it. But it is unlikely to be that orderly, and so being as prepared as we can is the most that we can do.
Thank you. Dr. Hines.
So first of all, I want to thank our administrators in the back for what was probably one of the hardest days over the past several years, for sure. So I want to thank you for everything that you did to lead through a very difficult day, and certainly our teachers and other staff members as well. I've heard time and time again today that this was difficult in a multitude of ways. I met with all superintendents on Long Island today. My first meeting was with our Nassau County superintendents, my colleagues, who are all over the map in regards to what's happening right now. And the same thing with my Suffolk County counterparts as well when we met this afternoon. The one common denominator is we are all frustrated. We certainly hear your frustration as parents, and that's incredibly important to us, to this board, certainly to our administration. One thing I can guarantee you is that we will begin to plan what this looks like when it changes, where students and staff are no longer wearing masks. The one thing we have learned since March of 2020, which seems like 10 years ago at this point, is that we cannot be reactive. I've learned that the hard way, for sure. I've been hit between the eyes many, many times. And so I appreciate what Dr. Block said, Mr. Smith, and every other board member said. We will be proactive. We will work together with our administrators, with our teachers, to make sure we have the best plan possible for your children. Thank you.
So I have a question for the board. Can we move this, because I'm listening to Mr. Smith's observation as well, that we do have a lot of business that the board does need to conduct going forward. We are going into budget season. So Dr. Hines, the question that I would ask, and I'm going to ask the board if they're comfortable with this, can we get an update to the board by the next board meeting? And again, it wouldn't be a discussion, it would be an update to the board on what has been discussed administratively and the types of plans that you think you may or may not be doing, with a final plan presented on February 15th to let the board know a draft of a plan, I guess, on February 15th, in case the mandate is expiring on the 15th, and in case we have not gotten any new. I know that there's a lot of ifs, but I'm saying in case there hasn't been any new guidance or mandates that have come down, could we have something done by the 15th? So first, before I ask the board how they feel about this, I'm asking you how you feel about this.
Are you asking me in private or in public?
In public.
No, in all seriousness, listen, we will do our best to have something in draft form for the board on the 15th. In the meantime, because it's a very short period of time, we are meeting already in a multitude of ways with a myriad of different concerns that we have. So I will reach out to certainly Dr. Shields and to Ms. McLean and some others, and certainly our administrators, to put something together in draft form for the board.
Mr. Smith has a question, and then I see you, Ms. Gilliar.
I have two questions. Number one is, what would we do if the stay does not get extended on Friday, or doesn't get extended on Monday or Tuesday? No, just so we know, are we meeting an emergency over the week? I just want to understand what would happen if it doesn't get extended on Friday. And then I'm a little bit concerned about the 15th not being soon enough. Just the way things are moving so fast, we may still get caught unprepared. Just throwing that out there.
Well, before Massapequa, though, they're the 21st. I'm just putting that out there. Okay, so Mr. Miller, what happens? So is there again a possibility on Friday that the state does not get continued? There is, right? There is.
It's a possibility that the full appellate panel vacates the decision of the single judge and says there's no stay. That's a possibility. And that would then shift this back to local school districts unless the legislature would act quickly and enact a law that the governor signs before Monday. And again, I'm not so sure that you're going to get a decision on Friday. It would be nice to get some clarity, but clarity is hard to find. So we just simply don't know the answer to whether we're going to get a ruling on Friday or not.
So I'm just sensing that there's no way we'll be able to say, I know, Mr. Smith, you have a question, but I'm sensing that I don't know that we can answer it this evening. We do have a meeting scheduled on February 1st. I know it is budget season, but unfortunately, I know, Dr. Block, I promised that we'd be coming out of meetings in shorter periods of time, but it may be one of those. I don't know how to answer the question unless anybody else has any other suggestions or has any input.
I mean, I think to a certain extent we have to live with the uncertainty, but we could certainly decide that unless Dr. Hines decides otherwise, that we're going to keep all rules the same until the board has a chance to meet and decide. And so if something changes on Friday, we leave it until Tuesday.
I just need, okay, does anybody else have what's the other feeling? I just need to point out, Tuesday would be the first time, right? Like, so we wouldn't really be extending anything. If there is no decision on Friday and there is no decision on Monday, the mandate is still in place. So we wouldn't be doing anything. We wouldn't be extending anything on our own. We would still be following the mandate. Does anybody else have anything to say about that?
And that's far more likely, I think. I mean, we can ask Howard, but I think that there are two opposing court cases, two precedents that have equal weight that come out in the opposite direction, and that it's very likely that this is not an issue that we're really going to have to confront, because the stay is going to stay in place until the mandate either expires or the appeal is decided.
So then I would say that this board has to be ready on February 1st. If there's no answer, right, that we have to make a decision on February 1st on, if the answer is against us, against the mandate, if the answer is against the mandate on February 1st, this board has to make a decision on how Port Washington is continuing. Correct?
I agree.
We all
with
agree with that? Okay.
Yeah, you have to make an active decision.
Okay, so are we also in agreement? So that's scenario number one. If the mandate is no longer continued on February 1st, this Board of Education will make a decision on how we are proceeding with masks. Agreed? Yes? I see
Yes.
heads, okay. There's no motion. The second situation is that at the present time, our administration is going to start working out some of the questions that we've had as board members, community members have had about the scenarios of what happens if there's a mask option. And we will report back to the board with a draft by the 15th with the expectation that the 15th, with the hypothesis, not expectation, that the 15th, the mandate is expiring and we have to put other practices in place. Are we all in agreement on that? Yes. Ms. Brooks, I know you had questions that were very specific to what ifs. If possible, can you put that in an email and we'll get it to the administration so they can work that out as the details?
You bet.
I knew you would. Yeah.
I'm just concerned that the 15th is too far out there, but I'm just one.
Okay, I understand that. I do believe, though, from what I've heard, what we heard, Adam, this morning or this afternoon in the protocol meeting and what we heard from Dr. Hines now, there's a lot else that is there's a lot of details that need to be worked out and answered that I don't think in the next few days will be able to be answered. I understand what you're saying. So if you have a plan earlier than the 15th, okay, but remember, these are meetings that we have scheduled, which is, we have to have public discussions about this. So if something comes up sooner, we will have an emergency meeting, right? That has to happen, correct? Does everybody, Adam, do you understand that? If we have to act sooner.
If we're going to keep talking about this, we may need to schedule devoted meetings, maybe virtual during the day or something, but I don't think we can give up evening meetings to this kind of conversation anymore. Ask Kathy, I don't think we have time.
We have time. We're just going to be here till 2 a.m. I'm polling the board. Oh, you all okay with that? I mean, I've heard Mr. Smith's feeling. Is everybody else okay with my suggestions? Ms. Gillier, you're raising your hand to say yes? It's just a yes or no, please.
I'm fine with it, but what happens if this day is not extended on Friday? What happens in our district on Monday and Tuesday before the board meeting meets? Because I think for this, I was asking the board. To spare our staff and our teachers and our administrators from the kind of day that they had today, I think certainty is important here.
So, is there a suggestion then?
I mean, my suggestion was, given that we don't know what's going to happen, look, we've already discussed that we may have to schedule an emergency meeting at no notice if something comes down. And so it's not that something would necessarily have to wait until the next board meeting. But my suggestion is, and I don't know that we need to vote on it or if we need to just have a sense, but I think that the rules in Port Washington should stay what the rules are until there is an opportunity for a public discussion and a public announcement of what the rule change is, because that allows certainty and an orderly transition to whatever the next set of rules is, rather than having chaos and uncertainty among staff, among the community about what is happening.
So Ms. Gillier is proposing that if, again, I think it's what we said earlier, we have a meeting on February 2nd. So your question is what happened February 1st. So your question is what happens on Monday, right? If it doesn't, because Friday it's in effect. The question becomes, if this doesn't get granted, this state doesn't continue, then what happens on Monday? And your suggestion is that on Monday, Port Washington continues with the mask mandate until we meet as a board on the following evening and make a public discussion and vote on how we proceed. That's Ms. Gillier's I am getting a sense of the board now. Ms. Melkonian, that's the suggestion for Ms. Gillier.
I guess I have a really important question for Dr. Hines and the administration in that if the stay is not granted on Friday, what do they need to be prepared for the schools to open in a different manner? They may not be ready for the changes that are necessary by Monday morning. So the question to the administration is how will our schools be ready by Monday?
Good question.
Well, first and foremost, it is an important question, and that's probably the most important question, whether it's Monday or whether it's 2 weeks from now. The sense that I gathered, and it's a very small sample size, but I think it's an important one nonetheless, is that at our protocol meeting this afternoon, we asked the staff how they felt about the potential of moving in this direction. And there's a lot of different edges and a lot of different things that we have to consider and contend with. And anxiety is real, whether it's for our students, whether it's for our staff, and we have to take those things into consideration. I have spoken with other superintendents across, as I said before, Long Island, the ones that flipped the switch and made it mask optional. And yes, there were families and students who were very happy, and there were lots of families and staff that were very concerned. And we have to take all of that into account. And what we're trying to do here is strike a balance between the two. And that's what we're going to do moving forward. So to answer your question, I would want to, and I would want to continue the rest of this week, because it's only Tuesday, is to meet with our teachers, our staff, and certainly with our administrators to formulate something that makes everyone, to the best of our ability, feel comfortable. So it's very hard for me to say what that would be, but one of them is making sure we're in compliance and we're reducing anxiety as much as we can. Those are the two things that we would focus on.
Dr. Block, do you have anything? No. Okay. Ms. Brooks.
I think what is being, in my opinion, what's being lost in this conversation is the reason that the mask mandate exists, the reason that the governor or the Department of Health, actually it's the Department of Health's emergency rule. If you go through the New York State Register and you follow it, you'll see that it's been months in the making, where the Department of Health chose to have the mask mandate potentially end February 15th, 21st, whatever it was, and must have had a reason for doing so. And the rule was invalidated on procedural grounds. And the judge took great pains to say he was not commenting on whether masks work or they don't work, and he wasn't going there. But he did invalidate it on procedural grounds, which means that if the Department of Health sees fit to bring it back, if they feel that procedurally this is what needs to cure it, and it becomes a valid rule, it's because they feel that we're still in a pandemic, and that kids still need to be masked in schools, and inmates still need to be masked in prisons, because this rule.
I'm asking everybody to please, I'm asking everyone to please allow us to conduct the business. Please, please, thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Brooks.
Because the rule applied to
Hello? Don't speak. We've made a commitment to have this discussion, and we made a commitment to get out of here at a reasonable time. Please, I'm asking. No, you can have the second set of comments are set for the community. You will have that opportunity as well. Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Brooks.
So the rule involved transit workers, healthcare workers. It wasn't just schools. And the Department of Health must have had a reason for why it did this. And I think lost in this conversation is that it was not invalidated in terms of its substance. It was invalidated because of the procedure. And what I'm trying to explain to the board is I feel it's an artificial end date. If we say, because procedurally it was defective, that now on the 1st, right?
Okay.
So
I'm
saying that the magic date for the Department of Health was February 15th, 21st. I don't know which one it was. And I feel that trying to allow this district to make sure that the kids, whether, I don't know how the district wants to handle unmasked kids versus masked kids if we decide that's how we have to go. But I feel that it's being artificially imposed on us because of the procedural defect. If it was a procedural defect, we'll find out on appeal. I'm cautioning the board because the pandemic is still out there, and thank goodness our numbers are falling, but we are not where we were at the beginning of the year. We're higher than we were at the beginning of the year. And when we know that if there were no masks in the classrooms, this thing would have shut down our schools really, really quickly.
Okay, so here, I'm asking, Deborah, I'm asking you to stop for a second.
I feel the political pressure, and I don't want to kowtow to it.
I don't want to either.
So I'm focusing on the pandemic, that masks work. I know it's not great for all the kids to wear them, but I am really sure that they work in the classrooms, and especially in rooms where our kids are facing each other. And so I'm just cautioning, I don't agree with everybody out there, but I was very respectful. Every single time anybody has spoken, I have looked you in the eye, I have listened to you. I have taken what you said to heart in every single email and every single time you get up on that podium. And
Brooks,
I'm asking the
thank you.
same. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So I think you understand
I
what
hear
I'm
you.
saying. Let's
I'm
just-
wrapping up this conversation because we put in our 20-minute limit. So I'm asking the board again. We have a proposal from Ms. Gilliard that as of February, if the mandate is not, the stay is not continued on Friday, on Monday, the question mark day, will we be in support of keeping the mandate in place until Tuesday when we meet again as a board? May I have hands up in a vote, please? Ms. Brooks is in favor. Ms. Gilliard is in favor. Ms. Malcone? Okay, see, you're supposed to look at me. We have a proposal from Ms. Gilliard that as of Monday, if the mandate is not stayed, still, I can't say it anymore. If the stay has not been continued, that's the word, are we telling the superintendent that Monday should continue the mask mandate until the board meets on Tuesday to discuss it and make a decision further? That is the proposal. I need a yes or no, please. Don't do that. I'm gonna turn you off. It's a yes or no. Please, it's your proposal, so it's a yes or no. Ms. Gilliard is a yes. Ms. Balconian?
Yes.
Dr. Block?
You're going to love this. I'm abstaining.
Dr. Block? That's good.
You're a parent, who cares? You can't abstain.
Ms. Brooks?
If the time comes, I'll take the vote. But we're talking about hypothetical, and I don't know why we've just wasted 15 minutes talking about a hypothetical. If it comes, I promise you I will take the vote, but this isn't here.
Mr. Smith brought up the hypothetical. Ms. Brooks?
I agree to extend the mask mandate until we discuss it on February 1st, so that everybody in the district understands what's expected. Yes, I think it's important.
Put Mr. Smith on, please. Adam Smith?
Yeah, I'm thinking because, I posed the question not to lead to a motion like this. That wasn't my aim. I wanted to have a discussion about it. I would rather not discuss it on Tuesday. I don't see why we wouldn't discuss it now. What are we gonna know on Tuesday that we don't know today? So I think we should make a decision.
No, Adam.
I'm not saying what the decision should be. I just don't understand why we would make it on Tuesday.
Adam, I don't.
No, you no? I'm taking a vote. Are you a no?
I think he's.
I'm a no.
You're a no. Okay. Ms. Epstein?
I'm a no.
I'm also a no. So we are tied. And so we will then, I guess, procedurally give it to Dr. Hines to make the decision. And who just walked out.
I mean, I think
And
that
there's
what
a decision.
I think what will actually happen is if the stay is not continued, then we have to make this decision on Friday night or Monday morning or whenever it happens.
So why
Okay.
not make the decision right now then? So we just don't have to come back in. I'm sorry, we're sitting here having these discussions about hypotheticals and what or be concrete and say that on February 1st, we're going to make a concrete decision if there's no stay.
I mean, my preference would be that we not have to discuss this on February 1st, right?
Right,
Hopefully
right.
we have certainty and we don't have to discuss it. It would be better for Port Washington if we didn't have to discuss these masks at every single meeting. It's enough already. I'd like to get back to discussing education. So, I mean, look, I don't know that it changes either of your opinions, but the comment that I was going to make was I really think that we should have a broader thought that we're not going to change any rules here without the board meeting and discussing it, and that we'll do that whenever it is necessary for us to do that. And whatever the vote is, I actually think that's probably where all 7 of us are.
Okay, so since we are mixed, what we're going to do then is move from this item and on, if there is a decision that we need to make on Monday, we will convene an emergency meeting of the board on Monday and we will.
Or Saturday.
Or Saturday
Sunday.
or whatever the decision is, and it will be a virtual meeting so that we can all be present at the same time, okay? We have that ability as well as open meetings law. So that is open to the public, correct? Okay, next, and then the next step was what we had all agreed is, forgetting now this stay, we are still going to be working on, as a school district, for a plan to put in place and answer the questions by February 15th. Everybody in agreement with that, to present to the board and discuss? Yes? I see shaking of heads. Okay, hands up. Do I need hands up or no? Okay. Okay, then, we are now continuing to committee reports. Okay, committee reports.
Okay, so I guess I'm first, right?
So, yes, policy and personnel.
Since we're now down to action items only, there was nothing that the board needed to discuss. We just have a couple of policies on for adoption with the recommendation of the superintendent, and then a policy on for a first read, and that's really our action items.
Your next meeting is?
Oh, yes, thank you. Our next meeting is February, I want to say 9th, thank you, which is a week earlier because we have, there's a board meeting the following week and then winter break, so it's a little off the calendar, but on a Wednesday.
Thank you. Budget and facilities, Dr. Block, you're taking over for Mr. Smith.
Sure, I'll give it a shot. So we met with Residents Forward, who is talking about doing some work in improving the Guggenheim Preserve, and we recommend that the board provides a letter of support for that work. We discussed the capital reserve, and we are waiting for specific dollars to potentially move forward the capital reserve when Ms. O'Hara is able to develop those. And we are planning on going forward in creating building level daycare, which means that we are developing a plan to consider putting in building level after school care at each of the elementary schools. Currently, it's only available at Daly and Guggenheim. We want to
You're
extend
giving me action items. This is, remember, so what does the board need to act on? Does the board need to act on any of this?
So are we going to provide a letter of support to Residents Forward?
See, Dr. Block, you're breaking your own rules. Okay, is the board okay? Does the board have any questions or hesitancy of providing a letter of support for the Guggenheim Preserve for the grant that the Residents Forward would like to apply for? Is everybody okay with that? Anybody have any questions, hesitation? Ms. Brooks, you
It
have a
doesn't
question?
bind the district in any way, it's just the district saying, yeah, we support.
Yes,
these
we actually
people,
asked
and go ahead
our
and
attorney,
get your
Mr.
money.
Miller, to put something together, and he will put it together. So everybody's okay? We'll move on to the next committee meeting, committee report curriculum. Ms. Gilliard.
So nothing new to report since our last meeting, but our next curriculum committee meeting is this coming Friday, which I'm looking up the date on. I think it's the 28th. So maybe we'll find out about the stay in the middle of it, but otherwise we'll be talking about assessments. And I look forward to seeing everybody there.
Thank you. Audit Committee.
Our action item is actually on the consent agenda as item 11.1.4. It's to approve the corrective action plan for the club monies as per our external audit, and that's the only action for the board.
Thank you. And we did have a legislative task force meeting. We are asking actually a recommendation for the board. I'm asking board members from the committee to attend. The board members from the legislative task force committee were myself, Ms. Brooks, and Ms. Epstein to attend Lobby Day virtually on February 9th and support the efforts to change the foundation aid formula. That is one of the NISBA Lobby Day it's a legislative lobby day. So if anybody has an objection to that, please let us know. Otherwise, the three of us will be attending virtually. And by the way, that is open to all board members. I mean, it's not, we would be representing. So do you have a question, Dr. Block? Okay. No?
It's about the consent agenda.
Okay. Getting a dirty look from me. Okay. So is everybody okay with Lobby Day and no questions, right? Okay, we are moving on to item number 11 on our agenda. Am I correct, Ms. Epstein? Okay. We need a motion to approve the minutes from January 11th BOE meeting and January 12th Audit Advisory Committee meeting. Ms. Epstein, Ms. Malconian seconds it. Are we all in favor? Yes, 7-0. Thank you very much. Oh, it's not 7-0, it's 6-0. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
So it's 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we are now up at consent agenda. Dr. Block, do you need something to ask?
Yeah, so this was from the audit committee, the item from the audit committee regarding the corrective action plan. I did not support it in the audit committee, and so I want it removed so I can vote on it separately and oppose it.
Thank you, Dr. Block. So it's 11.1.4 pulled. Okay. Okay, so before we move on to consent agenda, I would like to actually take a moment and thank some of the donations that we have. So it's the Karen J. I'm sorry, I'm definitely I could do the Greek names, but I can't do
I'm
this.
sorry, are you pulling 12.1.4 or 11.1.4?
No,
I think it's 12, 12.1.4.
Yeah.
Thank you very
And
much.
also the tenure was a different number.
That was tenure. Thank you. You are correct. Thank you. See, that's why we're a board of 7. Okay, so back to recognizing the donations. It's Karen J. Zimansky for the donation to the Dr. E.K. and Joyce Scholarship. Mr. Steve Gowley for uniforms for the varsity baseball team. Peter and Jerry Dejana Foundation for the Dejana Scholarship Fund. An anonymous donor for student recess equipment and supplies at SUSA. We'd like to thank the Daily, Salem, and Guggenheim HSAs for their donations towards the 5th grade trip to the Adventureland. Spring Rock LLC for purchase of new uniforms for the quartets and equipment and supplies for the radio club at Schreiber. Thank you all for your very generous donations. So,
These are all 12, sorry.
So I am asking that we go to pull out item number 12.1.4. Let's vote on that separately. So item 12.1.4 is the corrective action plan of the audit. May I have hands in favor or not? So it's in favor of the correction of Mr. Smith, is he on for the vote? Right. Are you hands up or hand down?
Yeah, I'm hands up.
Okay, so it's a 6, and Dr. Block, you are dissenting, correct? So it's 6-1. So Outside of that item, then, we are going to go for a consent agenda and so I would like a motion to approve 12.1, say that again? 12.1 12.1 to 12.1.3, and then 12.3.5 to 12.5.72.
12.1.5.
No, we're not 11, we're 12, because the information is not right. I haven't updated the agenda online, sorry.
Okay, let's do the numbers again.
You're skipping 12.1.4.
And also the one from tenure. We have to.
Oh,
We did tenure.
One, so that's why they're having
yeah.
that issue as well, so yeah.
Except that I think we voted on the tenure one on the wrong number too, so maybe we should just leave it in and vote on it again.
Okay, how about
Okay,
this?
so then this will be the numbers.
Right, you're right, we did it as 11. Where were you then? Okay, so we're going to go with 12.1 to 12.1.3, and then 12.3.5, and 12.5 to 12.7.2, is that correct? Without 12.1.4. Is that, can I have a second on that, please? Well, while checking the numbers, hold on, do you have a second? Are you seconding? Miss? Yes. Ms. Malconi in second, all in favor? We've pulled out the other one. 7-0, thank you.
Wait, I'm gonna, we have to do a motion.
I made the motion, Ms. Malconi and seconded.
We have to get Adam Smith.
Mr. Smith, sorry. Mr. Smith, are you okay with the consent?
Yeah, I texted Julie, yes.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Sorry.
we got his vote via text. Okay, so that means we can move on to board policy number, so we have on, Ms. Brooks, you want to make the motion to adopt the policies?
Surely, I will make the motion to adopt, hold on, please. I had them up on my screen, and then I moved away from them. So, it would be a motion to, for item number 13.1.1, to approve the policy 5021 for Title IX, harassment and sexual discrimination, and policy 9020.1, sexual harassment prevention, for adoption with the recommendation of the superintendent.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, Ms. Malconi in second. All in favor? 6-0, waiting for Mr. Smith.
Yes, I can't type fast enough.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to old business.
And then there's policy 13.1.2,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just on for a first read. I think no motion is needed, but I just wanted to point it out.
Right, so I forgot to mention that when we have policies on first reading, unless there is a question from a board member going forward, we're just gonna list them, have them on the board agenda, but move on from them until we need an actual motion. So thank you for bringing that up. So we are going back to community comments from our old business, and there was a question that we are addressing this evening, which is, what are the consequences of kids who opt out of masking while in school? Dr. Hines, do you think that's relevant today? To your question.
Yeah, so today was, when I say a special day, I don't mean that in a positive way. What we didn't want to do today is to confront kids in this time of purgatory before we knew the state was actually in motion. So what we did was we spoke to kids, or administrators did, and we didn't want to push it. I know in some school districts they actually, moved kids into a separate room who were unmasked. We didn't want to go in that direction for sure. So we asked them to please, wear a mask, and left it at that. Tomorrow's a different story, however, when it comes to it now being something that everybody must follow. And our sincere hope is that all of our students will do that starting tomorrow until we hear otherwise. But today, again, we wanted to keep the peace. We wanted to use our relationships that we have with our students, our teachers, and our administrators. And I think for the most part, it was relatively successful.
Thank you. And there was another question, community comment question, which was advocating for what is best for children. What is the difference between advocating for one mandate over another when both mandates risk the loss of state aid? And this comment was in reference to Dr. Hines and his opt-out, how vocal he was about opting out of tests. And it was also in reference to Trustee Brooks, who was very also vocal in the opt-out movement. And I'm answering to basically say the following. Dr. Hines's work that he did, or his advocacy, and Mrs. Brooks' advocacy were way before that they were on the Board of Education. They did not speak on behalf of the Port Washington Board of Education. Dr. Hines was at a different school district where he did have the support of his Board of Education. This is a different situation. And so, and Ms. Brooks was vocal, but in her private citizen role and was not speaking on behalf of the Board of Education. These particular mandates would affect the work of the Board of Education, which would ultimately affect the work of the school district and the funding of the school district. This is not what the Port Washington School Board has been advocating. So I am now going on to, is there any new business? Ms. Gilliar has new business.
I am smiling at you from behind the mask because I know you're hating me a little bit right now.
Never
But I have
hate you.
one comment. So just to try and put things in perspective a little bit, because like I said, the antagonism between groups concerns me. You know, I was thinking today about what it was like to be a teacher or a paraprofessional or an administrator or other school staff person on January 25th of 2020 versus what it was like to do that job today. And I was thinking about the fact that in many ways it's the same, right? They're still doing the same work. They're still educating our children every day. They're still trying to create a nurturing, loving, supportive environment for our children every day. But they are also dealing with the fact that we have been in the midst of a pandemic and regulations that they have to comply with and the things that they need to do to make sure that they keep our children safe and healthy and that they follow these rules so that we can keep our schools open because we all believe that the children should be in the classroom.
I'm going to interrupt you. How is
the
this
new business is my comment.
Please.
So I heard a comment today that teachers treat our children like disease vectors. And there's not a teacher sitting up here who gets to talk at the meeting, and they're not here today, even though they usually are. And I really feel the need to address that because as a board member and as a parent who has 4 children in this district, I think that comment does a grave injustice to our teachers and the paraprofessionals and the other staff people who have contact with them because I have seen no such thing come off of our teachers. And I think that in truth, what we all share and where we should come together is that we're all frustrated to still be in the middle of this. Many of us started out by thinking it would be a couple weeks, then a couple months, then just this year, then hopefully just next year too. And everybody's living through this together. And I just think that we should acknowledge that our teachers don't want to be in masks any more than any of us want to be in masks. We don't want to be in masks. We don't want our children to be in masks. Our teachers didn't want our children behind barriers. And I know you're looking at the time. I think let's remember that we have some core values and core beliefs and core ideals that we do really all share. We really do all want to find our way out of the end of this, and I think our teachers are doing a tremendous job, and we should be thanking them.
I think I'm going to turn this actually into new business, which is what we're supposed to be doing right now. Because
I can make a resolution to thank them if that helps.
The resolution to thank, right. I'd like to actually ask, because it's not only this comment that we heard tonight, but we actually have heard from our teachers. We've heard from our teachers many times at these past meetings who have discussed their concerns about learning loss that has happened over COVID time period, who have expressed, I will tell you, so if we're going to go back to stories, I remember last meeting where we had a teacher stand and tell us how disturbed she was that she had a first grader that didn't know what a triangle was. So there is a question right there and then. And I also heard teachers saying that he would long for the days that he could tell his students to stop talking. And to me, those struck real chords. So as a new business directive, sorry, coming your way, I'd like to actually ask the superintendent and the administration to report back to the board what we are doing as a school district to help guide our students and our staff past this, what we've been dealing with COVID-wise. So learning loss and mental health-wise. So if possible, can we have a report to the board on that? Is this
By February 1, too?
by February 1st, but tomorrow. I do think we need to address it as a board because I do believe, actually, I think it's very relevant, Dr. Hines, as we are going into budget season. So my question actually does, and so I don't want you to give me a report, but I would like for us to maybe start thinking about these things as we are doing our budgeting for next year. What are the needs that we need in our school district to address some of the things that we did hear from our staff and we've heard from parents continuously, right? So if that's what that's what I'm asking for. But not by February 1st. Is everybody okay with that? Yes, everybody shaking hands.
I think it's great, but I think it's a hefty ask. That's an important ask, and maybe it's spring,
I'm asking for it to be thought about in the budget process. So do we need to budget something differently? Not the spring.
I totally respect the ask, but with all due respect, I think probably some of that is underway already, not in that particular way, right? We've been looking at the ARP funds. I don't want to speak for Dr. Hines, but I think I agree.
Yeah, how's February 2nd? Is that better?
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Epstein.
I was in error and I neglected to include a question on from the old business, so we will address it on February 1st. It's regarding the ARP funds and anything that the district has to follow regarding that science, or if there's contractual relationships, whatnot. So I will go back and pull the question. We'll address on the 1st.
Thank you. Okay, we now have an opportunity for, unless there was any other new business that okay. Community to be heard again, so please, 3-minute time limit, please, per speaker.
Robert Lyons.
Good evening, board. Good evening, strong parents of Port Washington. It's a difficult time everyone's dealing with right now, and Ms. Gilliard, your comments about this really dividing the community, mask versus no mask, I don't really think that's what it's about. It is a difference of the people who wish to retain autonomy and agency over themselves and their families, and the people who wish to remove that agency and autonomy from families. You could look at any single person in here who is not for a mask mandate and for a mask option would never vote to mandate that no one could wear a mask, because it's about choice and it's about freedom. And while there are mandates which function like laws, they are not laws. They're limited in scope and limited in duration. And one of the things that is most striking to me is that if people are worried about someone else not wearing a mask and they want to wear a mask, there's no limit to the amount of masking or prophylactic measures they can take to protect themselves. Not a single person would stop them from coming into school wearing a scuba mask, wearing a high quality chemical mask. But that does not mean that you can mandate ineffective cloth, surgical, non effective mask towards the rest of the community and the children. These are children. They are 5, they are 3, they are 7. They can deal with a tremendous amount which is placed upon them. But let me ask you a question. Should they have to? What mandate or what law would it take for you to say that's too much to impose upon the children? At some point, you need to say, these are not common sense, these are not good for the community, and the education that you're trying to give these kids for the future is being
30 seconds.
decimated by the psychological or the learning impediments that are being put in front of them. Look inward and ask yourself, if you were on the other side of this and you wanted the choice, how would you want the community to support you? To exert their will upon you, or for you to have personal agency? Thank the mothers of this community for standing up, because this has gone on too long. We're not in the
3
middle of
minutes.
this. It's over. Get on with it.
Vess Gottlieb.
Good evening. My name is Vess Gottlieb. I have an 11th grader here at Schreiber High School. Last night, my daughter said her one anxiety was her acne, cystic acne that she has gotten from wearing the mask. I speak for all the children who can't be here tonight to tell you what it is like to wear a mask for 8 hours a day. For the kindergartners who can't see her teacher's face to get social cues, blocking the human connection to learning. To the first grader with dyslexia, which my daughter had, who cannot see people speak, which further hindrances her phonetic development. The second grader who has developed facial tics and picks at her face. The third grader who suffers with social anxiety, not being able to tell if his peers actually like him. And the list of harm wearing a mask goes on and on. This is what you've created for our children. The mask mandates are unconstitutional. You have no authority to enforce these masks on our children any longer. And to Dr. Adam Block, as the gentleman before me said, mandates are not a law. Herschel has lost her emergency power. She cannot enforce this. It's not a law. And you may have your legal mumbo jumbo, but the end for this is coming, and we are sick of it. I am, as a mom, lucky my daughter is not in first grade, because I would have to homeschool. And while people love this town, it's not okay to not have a choice. What happened to our bodies, our choice? That's only okay for the women's movement, but it's not okay for children. Adults can handle this better than children. Adults can take breaks. Children need to see the face of their peers. This is a hard town. It's a difficult town. My daughter struggled socially at Daly. Thank God she's not there anymore. I'm asking you to consider the alternative. You're all in love with this mask. Get rid of it. It's enough!
Jessica Malwani.
Good evening, Jessica Melwani, Manor Haven parent. First, I want to thank the administration for its clear, timely communication about last night's court ruling. I'm personally grateful that you addressed the issue quickly and directly and took a thoughtful, measured approach that maintained clarity and stability for students and staff in our buildings today amid predictable volatility. We saw surrounding districts take varied approaches on the heels of last night's ruling. Some reversed their decisions just hours later, and others are now forced to walk back their decisions tomorrow morning. Thank you for not putting our kids and our teachers in the crosshairs of today's political ping-pong match. I would encourage you to continue taking a similarly thoughtful, measured approach to both policy development and communication for the sake of maintaining a safe, stable environment for our kids and building staff. I was heartened to hear tonight's discussion around the need to articulate what the off-ramp looks like. But there's that critical work, and then there are the communications that support it. And from a community member's perspective, there's often a disconnect between the two. I hope you will take a visibly proactive rather than reactive approach to planning for the current mandate's imminent expiration. When the time comes to relax masking requirements, and it will come, maybe February 1st or 15th or sooner or later, no one in our school community, from the board or our administrators to our staff, our parents, or our kids, should be taken by surprise, nor should the administration appear to be caught flat-footed. If the state does issue new guidance around masking at the 11th hour that throws a wrench into any plans underway, I hope you will feel empowered to prioritize stability, take a beat to reconsider the plans for our buildings, and communicate them clearly and quickly, but not hastily, to our families, students, and staff. And if the state offers no practical guidance at all for relaxing restrictions, as seems to be its MO, I hope you will be ready to communicate key information that will help parents, students, and staff make the most appropriate choices for themselves and their families. You raised some of the important questions around adjustments to building protocols and quarantine criteria earlier. Parents and staff should be fully informed about the implications of their options and about any new measures designed to keep our classrooms as safe, healthy, and well-attended as possible before the doors open on February 1st or 15th or whenever the mandate is lifted. Our whole community must feel informed about its choices, confident that necessary preparations have been made, and equipped to implement new guidance. The communications that get us there should be proactive, swift, clear, and accessible. Thank you.
Maeve Caffrey.
Maeve Caffrey, I have 2 kids at Sousa and 1 in preschool, going to be a Sousa kindergartner this year. I'm going to repeat myself and echo others, and I probably won't stop repeating myself until this is over. Mask mandates harm children, especially young children. They prevent them from having a normal social experience. They make it harder to connect. They make it harder to hear and be heard and to read facial expressions, to learn phonetics, to hear their teachers. We don't have much data on this because prior to 2020, it would have been rightly considered unethical to conduct studies on this. It would have been a reckless experiment, which I think this has been. I hope we do have observational and retrospective studies, but really we don't need studies. We just need to consult our humanity. We now know that cloth masks do little to slow the spread. And in a post-vaccine world, they would no longer be necessary, even if they did work. Please lift the school mask mandate, as many of our neighbors already have. Thank you.
Philip Caffrey.
Hello, my name is Philip Caffrey. I have 3 daughters here in Port Washington, 2 in Sousa, 1 in preschool. I just want to remind everyone that masks are harming our children. We have had a vaccine now for over a year, and yet there still seems to be no plan to get out of this. The mandate was set to expire on February 15th. That's 3 weeks from today. Why was there not a plan already? Why is there no conversation about this? It seems that there are conversations, about having conversations, about what we might do at some point in the future. The future is here. Everyone is vaccinated. Our children are not at risk. Why are we still doing this? At some point, we need to ask ourselves, we have to let some common sense come in. Our children are not at risk. We have a vaccine to protect us. Why are we burdening our children like this? Why are we harming them? It must end. Thank you.
Regina McLean.
Hi, Regina McLean. I'm the president of the Port Washington Teachers Association. I am a PEP teacher at Weber Middle School. I'm a taxpayer in this community, and my son is a graduate of Schreiber Middle School. One of the things that teachers do in their classrooms is teach our students how to have civil discourse in class. Just today, I was teaching the rules of debate to my 6th graders. I was very proud of how they civilly disagreed with one another. So it was very upsetting for me to see this evening how one of our students, one of my former students, was treated by some of the adults in this room just because he expressed a different viewpoint from them. We teach our students to stand up to bullies. I felt that I needed to stand up here and show some support for Aaron, who unfortunately has left. And I hope in the future that everyone in attendance can treat one another with respect. Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of community comments. Thank you very much. I believe I would like a motion. Oh, there is one more community comment? It's okay. Okay, run on. Oh, you can't run. Is that Marika? Marika, don't run.
Sorry, and thank you I'm Marika Lyons again. I just wanted to mention, and I forgot to before that, in the discussion before about what to do when the state mandate lapses, last night or yesterday in the afternoon, we started circulating a petition just to see what parents in the community thought about whether the district mandate should lapse when the state mandate lapses essentially on February 21st or earlier. I know the date is a little bit confusing. And we did get around 350 signatures just in a 24-hour period, essentially just word of mouth, and really the community, people from Port Washington. So I just wanted to mention that because I know in other meetings, maybe not today, people have maybe thought it was a minority or just a few people, but we got a lot of people who said, I've been afraid to be really vocal about this. There really is an element, as many have mentioned, where there's not that civil discord that we really should be having, unfortunately, on both sides, and people don't feel like they can always express themselves freely, but people did sign this petition. I have a list of names that I'd like to share with the board, so I will send that over. But just so you know, there is much more support for this than you might realize at a meeting. I also just wanted to mention one thing about the off-ramp and what we're going to do when the masks come off. Is it going to still be social distancing? What other measures are we going to have in place? And I just wanted to mention again the difference between the way vaccinated adults were treated and the way children are treated. Even though children, vaccinated or not, the data is clear that they're less likely to get, spread, or die of COVID. Yet vaccinated adults are free to go to MSG, sit next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, freely interact, no sanitizing, no nothing. They're living their lives freely. To take off the masks but to impose a host of other restrictions just really doesn't make sense and isn't consistent with the way people are treated. And just anecdotally, my daughter's in Girl Scouts at Manor Haven. There was an issue where some girls' masks were coming down when parents were at pickup. So a group of parents went to police the next meeting to make sure all the girls' noses were covered. At a parents' night out, those same parents in a closed room had their masks off drinking margaritas. I want to point out the hypocrisy. If you're gonna, I have total respect for parents who are truly afraid. There was one parent who spent the whole time in her N95. I have total respect for her. But if you're gonna police my daughter wear a mask because you're worried about your kid getting sick, but then you're going out freely with no mask, having drinks with people, no distancing, no nothing, how are you saying that one thing is keeping your child safe but the other isn't? We have to acknowledge that the
30
same rules
seconds.
that apply to adults should apply to children. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more community comments, I would like someone to make a motion to adjourn. Ms. Epstein, do you have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Dr. Block, do you want to second it?
I'd love to.
Okay, may I have hands, please? Mr. Smith may be sleeping at this point. Absolutely, he said. Okay, I do want to go on record, Dr. Block, it is 10 o'clock, okay? We did better. We did much better. Okay, our next meeting, everyone, is February 1st. See you back. Thank you. Good night.